Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Tristcast. I'm your host, Tristan Dario, and I invite you to sit back, relax, catch a vibe, and enjoy the show. Hey y'all, take a moment before you get settled. Follow the Tristcast and leave a rating. Alright, I'll see you in today's episode. Peace. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Tristcast. I hope everyone's doing all right. My name is Tristan Dario, and I am the host. If you're new here, welcome. Today, I want to talk about love. And I've talked about love before, but I've talked about love in different ways. And I just watched a movie that's been out for a while now. And this movie was very eye-opening for me. It's called Her. It came out a while ago, but you know, the funniest thing about this movie is it's not the only movie I've watched where a sample of it was heard in another place. So the people who I'm close with know that one of my favorite music genres is lo-fi. And one of the main things in lo-fi that makes it have this charm and this magic to it is they take samples from movies or TV shows or things of nostalgia, whatever, you know, they want to use. They use little snippets in it to give it that break before it moves on. And there's this song that I listened to back in 2017, 2018, when I was first really getting into lo-fi. And the song is called Ode to You. No spaces, so if you wish to look it up, Odetoyou. And it has samples of the movie in it. Now, I didn't know this before I watched the movie Her. Not only is that one thing of it, I also found a song that was used on TikTok not too long ago that was really trending called Song on the Beach, which is a beautiful composition, piano composition. It was immaculate, and I didn't realize that this is the movie that song was made for. It was produced by Arcade Fire, so easy to find if you haven't already heard it. But I'm really into jazz and piano compositions. I'm really into that kind of stuff. And when I watched this movie, I was completely blindsided that I was going to hear two major things. Well, especially Ode to You. When I heard the sample playing on this movie, I felt that instant, you know, I got, you know, standing hairs on my skin, and I just felt for a moment, oh my God, everything that I've ever experienced, even having this lo-fi song in my past, has led me to this movie. It doesn't have to be that deep, but to me it's that deep. And the funny thing I found about this movie, you know, some people might find the main character that Joaquin Phoenix plays, his name is Theodore. Some people would say he's weird. But I don't think he's weird. To give you backstory on it, to give you an idea, Theodore had just started, he had been going through a divorce with his wife. He grew up with her, they grew together, and then they grew apart, and then they got a divorce. And in this movie, if you don't already know it, he's falling in love with an OS system, an AI. He goes on dates, but he's not really meeting a person, or he doesn't really know what he wants, and he's afraid to give himself away to somebody. And he is very sad characters in the movie call him Mopey, because you can see that the light that he had within himself had gone out for a time, and he wasn't really finding the joy in life anymore because he's grieving this relationship that he had for such a long time, and this person that he trusted, this person that he knew, this person that he loved deeply was no longer in love with him and could not be with him. So you're watching this man who is sad, deeply sad. He misses someone that he really loved. And it's hitting him harder, or hitting him in a way that other people may have already experienced themselves. He's grieving. So he's afraid to move on. He's afraid to put himself out there maybe. So then when he finds an AI, something that, could be helpful for him, not realizing that down the road he would fall in love with it. Now, this AI, you could say, was built to know him and do what he needed. So for him, does it really love him? Maybe, but it's an AI. And you're watching this AI expand itself over the course of this movie. And you're watching him get so close to it. And you're watching him, I think it's a psychological thing. He's lost something. He's lost a piece of himself, and he's trying to find it somewhere. He's trying to find that joy that he once had. And lo and behold, it ends up being a computer. Now, that's very strange. I can already hear people saying that's strange as shit. Like, who the fuck would do that? But think about it now. Think about how hard it may be for some people to find love. And think about how hard it is to feel seen the way that you want to feel seen. And a computer, a AI comes in and sees you, understands you, because it was built to. But a person who is deeply grieving is finally seen, no matter who it is. And then once you're understanding that an AI, an artificial intelligence, the whole purpose of it is to build upon itself, to become the perfect being. And it's constantly learning. It is constantly evolving, and it's evolving at a much faster rate than us. Because not only is it built on code, it's taking everything outside of itself as experiences, and it's forming itself to that experience and the multiple others that it does experience. And so it's growing at a much faster rate. That's why, we are both, humans and AI is so complex, because AI is built to exceed us. We are building it ourselves day by day, not second by second, not 200ths of a second. So for us, we're growing exponentially slower. And are we growing in similar ways? Yes, we're growing by our experiences, by our day-to-day life, what's happening in our lives, what we experience when we feel loss. And then the artificial intelligence is growing at an astronomical rate because it has all of the education and knowledge at its fingertips to constantly grow. And then you place it into experiences, and it's no longer controlled. So now it is gaining traction by not only what it's reading and experiencing over the waves in the cloud, but also in the experiences with the person that it's on the other side with. And so this man who lost the love of his life, he's trying to find himself again, and he finds himself through a computer who sees him, understands him. And I heard an incredible quote today on another place where we are all our own sailor on a boat out at sea, or like it's something along the lines of that. And it has to do with romantic love. It's like we're all out at sea looking for something. And it's like we're all looking for that peace that comes in and fills that small hole in our heart that from time to time can grow larger. And usually the time it's love. Usually the time it's connection, because as humans we strive for connection. We desire connection more than anything. I have this belief that once we have connection, that unlocks the paths to success. And the more that we connect, or when we find that connection that we have been longing for, that opens us up to the possibilities of how much success we can have. It's like thinking, if you had that specific person by your side, think about how much you could achieve. And now, that's a lot of pressure and that's a lot of responsibility on another person when you're in a relationship. But if it's not, just pushing it all on one person, and you're both there for one another, loving one another, growing alongside one another, despite how you might be feeling, or, despite what's going on in your life, you have that encouragement, you have that support, that endless support. And I think that's what, makes it easier to achieve your goals and dreams. It's because you have that undying support. Now, eventually it does die, but AI doesn't. And I'm not saying that if it were me, I'd do it. But, in this life, you never know what's going to happen. But you see this love story between a human man and a robot. And I think that's what is so fascinating to me. And to know that this movie was based on the director or writers, I believe it's one or the other. But this is a man who was in a relationship with another woman, and both of them made separate perceptions of their love story and how they got out of it, and they made it into movies. So you can go out and you can watch the other movie by the other person that was in the relationship, and you get to see her perspective on how it went, not only his. And I think that's very fascinating, and I like, it makes me want to watch the other movie because I love to see both sides of it. But love as a whole, it's quite frankly strange how we can be searching for that, and how much control that goes into it. We say we want to release control. We want to do it the right way. We wanted to let it come to us. Some of us are able to do it much easier than others because we are so, involved in ourselves, and we are so independent, and we're able to do it. But then there are some of us who are just like, oh my God, if I just had it, if I could hold this person that I am longing for. And it's kind of like I had this theory, what if there are some people in this world, in this lifetime, who met their soulmate in a past life, but they moved on to a different realm. And there are some people here that are longing for that person that they met and that they knew in their previous life, and they're only longing for that one person or that one soul. But that soul's no longer in this life. So who are they longing for? They're longing for that soul, but they're never going to meet them. How lonely could they feel? How lonely will they go? How long will they go on before they realize that they're not going to meet that soul again, at least in this lifetime? And I just think that's a fascinating way of seeing it. I had this thought earlier, and this psychological thing of watching this grieving person looking for love and then finding it through something completely out of the ordinary, something completely that you would, some people would literally look at you and be like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you type shit. But he didn't care. Now, was there still complexities because he wasn't able to be completely upfront, and he was still denying how he was feeling at times, and he didn't know how to talk about it? That's a human thing. Some people still do that, and people will always do that because it's that sense of, can I tell you anything? But still not feeling that, not that the person that they're with doesn't make them feel safe, but sometimes we are the critic. We are our worst critic on our mindset and what's going on in our mind. And when we have a question, we are afraid to get it out because we don't know how someone's going to look at us when we say it, or how someone's going to react when we say it. So it's this state of like, oh, should I even bring it up, or should I just push it down? But we know the more you push down what it is you need to say, the more it latches onto your rib cage. And the more it sits on you and stresses you and strangles you until you finally get it out. And then you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and you don't even know if this is at the point where you should even say it at this point. But if you love somebody, you should tell them. You should tell them how you feel. Because if you don't, you're letting it go by and you may miss your chance. And I think that's something worth saying. Because love is complex. People do things that we don't always understand. People are the way they are because they are that way, and we don't understand it sometimes. And it can frustrate us. But that's the whole purpose of love, is like being open, opening your heart to seeking to understand. And not everyone's going to understand right off the bat. And some people are going to need a little bit more. And you know that can be frustrating for some people because they don't want to have to explain it. But you can't go through this world thinking that everything can just be said and then understood. And that's a complexity. That's having to love regardless, even if it's not being spoken. And, you know, people have all of these requirements when in a relationship. Oh, they have to be able to understand me when I say something. If it's the love of my life, they'll understand me. I don't think that's true. Because not all of us are the same in that way. And I don't think you can put that requirement on anybody. I think we can feel understood and we can feel seen, but that doesn't take out the fact that we're going to have to explain ourselves sometimes. Not everything's easy, and something worth having is worth working for, and it's not going to be easy. If it were easy, it'd get boring. Oh, it's the perfect guy. I love him because he's perfect and he's exactly what I need, but you can still feel that this is like, there's a little thing there. There's this little thing. Or the same thing with a girl. Like, no matter who you're looking for in your life, I think it's very, you know, you place that requirement and you place that expectation on somebody, they're going to let you down. Because I feel like if we can't do it ourselves, how can someone else do it? It's expectations can be fickle because you don't really understand until you're in it, and then you have to go through it, and then you can understand. But how are you going to understand if you've never had the experience? So opening yourself up and being open to the idea that it's going to happen regardless of controlling it or not. But the more we try to control the love that comes in our life and where we go, the more of a detriment it might be to us. Because when you go looking for something, usually it's not going to turn out good for you because you're looking for it. And usually when something just approaches your life out of nowhere, that's when you're like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? We meet a lot of people in our life. In our lifetime, we will meet millions of people. Maybe. We'll come across millions of people, but we may not always know them. But it is the select few that we come across that may have an impact on us, that will add to the mosaic that we are. And that's a beautiful thing. Because we could sit here all we want trying to figure everything out, but we're not going to figure it out, by controlling it. We're not going to, it's like forcing yourself to go to a location because you think it's where you're supposed to go, but it ends up being a detriment and puts you farther in the hole because that's where you thought you had to go rather than releasing the control and just allowing life to unfold for you. Now, I get it. You can't just sit aside and let it all figure out on you, like for you. You got to you got to work a little bit to get there, maybe a lot. There's a lot of people working a lot harder than others right now, especially with how their lives are going, with what they're experiencing and what kind of pain they may be going through. And, hope is what really stays with, that's something you have to work to keep within you. You got to keep having hope that it's all going to work out. Some people find it sooner than others. Some people don't find it at all. Maybe because of their own decision making, and then they take a left turn when they were supposed to take a right turn. And that's sometimes how it goes. Or some people just choose to be alone based on their own previous experiences and how life went for them. Some people just choose to be alone. But I think there's a person out there for all of us, regardless of who we want it to be and who we don't want it to be. And I think that's what's hard, is because we have this idea of what we want, and it's what we want isn't always what we need. And that can be hard that's a big pill to swallow, because we have all these expectations, requirements, we have all these desires and what we look for in a person. But when you are really looking for when you're really looking at the surface level of things, that's not opening yourself up to the entirety of what a person is. And that can be hard, because then you spent your entire life thinking that this is what I want because this is what I look at and this is what I look for. But then you realize that you've missed exactly what was best for you. And that's really difficult. Like I said, love can be complex, because we love people and we want the best for people, but we don't sometimes think we're the best for people, or we don't think they're the best for us because we think there's better out there. But that's because we're constantly looking. Some of us aren't. So maybe it's a thing of maturity too. But, I want to bring up something. Some people know I don't talk about it a lot because it's more for me. But I took a trip to Italy earlier this year, and I have a journal entry from one of the nights when I was in Florence, and I think it is around the 7th to 9th. Yeah. I think I was out. Yeah, I think this was the night I went to the this was the 8th was the night I went to a jazz club, and that was a great night. And this is going to take a little bit. So the next day was, the same day as the 9th, I ended up overhearing a conversation about people going out. All right. This is going to sound really, might be cringe or whatever, but I'm going to just put it out there. This was the 11th of February, around 9 in the morning. Last night, God blessed me on an incredible scale, yet again. I met someone, not just anyone. She spoke to me of how she runs, her lack of ability to hold her memory on unwanted experiences. Our love for writing and how it helps us, therapy and how we didn't get to actually get the help on things we needed. Her eyes so gentle, so sweet. Went through a few cigarettes. She wore a turtleneck sweater that was white and held her brunette-colored hair with a hair tie. She let it down a couple times throughout the night. She wore these brown lounge pants that hugged her hips very well, but gently covered her shoes while standing. We spoke about our passions, feminism, and she spoke to me about learning to live her life for herself. By the end of the night, I didn't want to leave, but I wanted her to know she was safe with me. and I didn't write anything else. But that evening, I spoke to her and felt something different that I've felt in a long time. A long time. I haven't been in a relationship for over 2 years. And in that time, I've gone through a lot of growth, and I've gone through a lot of time of becoming who I want to be and how I want to bring myself to the world. How I spread my passions, how I spread myself, and how I spread the light that lives within me. She inspired me. And I have friends who inspire me, but she inspired me to not be afraid. I mean, for God's sake, she grew up in a French town. It was like a commune town in France. And she was traveling all throughout Italy in her van, really living that, van life and just exploring the world, exploring herself, meeting great people, meeting fantastic people. And I remember that night, I didn't want to push boundaries. I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. But all I knew that night was I wanted to kiss her. And I just wanted to feel that energy on a deeper level. And she was marvelous. The way that I looked into her eyes and the way that she smiled when she spoke, and that she barely understood English, but she did very well, And even when she spoke in French, I kind of got what she was saying in a way. And all I knew is that I wanted to see her again, but I didn't get to. And I don't know if I ever will. And, that is one thing or the other, no matter what happens. I'm glad that I got to experience her energy at all and I got to meet her. But it was different. And it was as if I met someone I met up with somebody that I knew for such a long time, but it was also like the first time I ever met them. But I knew them. It's like I felt this energy before. And I didn't want to leave. I didn't want her to leave. But I have this conversation with a few of my friends, specifically women, because, I just don't talk about it a lot with my guy friends. But I try to tell the women I know that I want to feel safe around me. The reason why I am specifically with women is because I know a lot of women who have been sexually assaulted. I know a lot of women who have had very uncomfortable experiences with men. And because I know those stories, I know those experiences from their own life, I try to be different with the people that I meet. So I'm not super, touchy, or I don't try to press boundaries. I don't try to push myself onto people. I want a woman to feel safe. I want her to know that I'm not seeking anything out of my own personal interest. I'm not trying to take advantage of them. But it is also hard because I know that there is something specific that I do want with a particular person that I meet. And this specific woman that I met, it's like I wanted to kiss her. And I remember I called my mom. I was trying to get her on the phone. I was like, "Mom, I really got to ask you a question. But she couldn't call. And I texted her about it. I was like, I want to kiss this girl, but I don't know how to tell her. And this is why sometimes in conversations I have with people, my family and stuff, is like, I don't know how to talk to girls sometimes, or at least let them know that I'm interested. But I wanted to tell her, I wanted to do something that could show it. But as soon as she came back to the table, she told me about this experience with a guy she had just recently had when she was still in Florence, and how the guy offered to walk around the city with her, and by the end of the night, he was already asking to kiss her too. So like when she tells me she got super uncomfortable with this guy, I was like, I cannot do this. I gotta just, nope. But for us to be sitting with one another, talking until 2 a.m, not wanting to walk away, not wanting to leave, not wanting the conversation to end. That was some sort of way showing that we didn't want to walk away from one another. It was different, I guess. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I read into it. But I knew I was only thinking about her for the rest of my trip while I was experiencing and having a great time with so many other people. I was still having a great time, but there was something missing. And that's why I say, even if I don't ever meet her again, I know that I met somebody that touched my heart in a way that it opened me up again. Because up until that point, I wasn't really open to it. I was afraid. I wasn't willing to put myself out there. I was too afraid to get hurt again, or I was too afraid of making mistakes that hurt another person, that I didn't want to put myself out there. And the second I had this experience with her and I had this night with her, I recognized how open my heart was and how ready I was and how much I did actually want it. But because of what I do know and how people have been, what other people have experienced, I don't want to place them in that same place again. And that's when, I overthink. I overthink about it. But it was so wholesome. And kindness was just in that entire period of time. And that sense of respect and happiness and joy was there. And I remember earlier that day, I was thinking about taking a nap. I was thinking I had heard the story of I just heard how people are going out and stuff, and I didn't really know who to hang out with. I thought I was just gonna take a nap, and then I ended up meeting a new traveler who entered into my room. And he was like, "Bro, let's go and get a beer. Let's go downstairs and get a beer. Don't even have to go out." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it." He's really cool too. And if it were not for him, I would have never went downstairs. And when we got that beer, we sat right down, and I made sure to sit down at the table because I remember when I came down, I immediately saw her. And I knew that I just wanted to talk to her. I had to talk to her. And I remember we locked eyes a couple times. We had that eye contact. I didn't move. She didn't move. But I ended up talking to her. I found a way to talk to her. And I remember by 30, 45 minutes into the conversation, I was on the other side of the table and I was sitting right next to her, telling her about the podcast, telling her about my passions, talking about a script I'm writing, and talking about how women are treated completely unfairly, and how France, it's very similar, if not worse, for women. And I knew that no matter if it ended or kept on going, I was happy with where I was. I felt safe. I felt very safe. I felt seen and understood. And I felt like she was actually listening to me. And I hope I did the same for her. I don't know. I don't talk to her. And maybe I should. But, I have this thing about long distance shit. I don't know if I'm the best at long distance. I don't think I'm the most consistent long distance. And so when I have a long distance relationship type situation, not even a situation, if it's a long distance relationship, I don't know if I'm the best kind of partner for that. I think I'm better in person. But it was still worth it. It was still worth being in that space with her. And no matter what, it opened me up. It opened me up to new possibilities. It opened me up to new potential things. And, if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't actually kept myself open for that, I wouldn't have found out. I wouldn't have noticed. I wouldn't have paid attention. Maybe I would have just kept on going about my day. So I would say to anyone listening, it's don't be afraid. Don't be like me and be afraid. Just do it and, do something subtle. Don't press boundaries. Do it in a sweet way. Ask. And I just watched another podcast, that library podcast. It's pretty good. I like it. And there was a dating coach on there just talking about, these are the subtle and, cute ways, sexy ways to be able to talk or ask, or, in this case, they were talking about how do you just ask a girl to kiss her, something that you can do is don't break the, energy that's happening and just do something as simple as like lean in and whisper in their ear, "Can I kiss you?" or something like that. Something that's going to be more of that sweetness. I can only use the term sweetness right now. My vocabulary is not as big at the moment, but yeah, I still think about her. I still see her posts on Instagram, but because I'm here in the United States, I just. But yeah, I sit around working on myself, and I make my money, and I do my creative things. But, I wouldn't be where I am today if it were not for the experiences I've had, and I've had wonderful experiences. And I am blessed by God to have the experiences I've had, especially in Florence. Florence will always have my heart for what I felt there and what I experienced there. I can't go back on that trip. Like, I can't go back to that trip and change any of my decisions. I have to live with the decisions I made. But I think about love. I think about relationships. I think about how important a romantic relationship is for some people. And I think it's an important thing for me. And when I saw past lives in Florence right before I came back to the States, it made me think even more about the people I've met, the souls I've came across, and how they may have been a part of my life in previous lives. So I think it's worth talking about. I think it's worth giving it some thought and really talking about it. Yeah, I think I want to leave it there. I think I've talked about everything I've really wanted to talk about for this episode this week. And I know that I really appreciated that time. I really appreciated that night. And if I did not meet her, I would not be where I am right now and the person I am. I wouldn't think about the things I think about now. I wouldn't see life the way that I see life now. So take that risk. Never be afraid. Even if you get rejected, even if it doesn't work out the way that you wanted it to or planned it to, at least you did it. And at least you tried. And with that, I would like to say, I hope you all have a wonderful morning, a wonderful afternoon, a wonderful evening, and a wonderful night.